Well, it's so good to see so many people coming into the Six Screens and Talent Network here tonight. It's amazing to me. We have more and more people coming in now every Saturday night. It is something else. This hasn't always been the way. There's a real uptick in people leaving the Watchtower organization, and they're trying to find out about others that have left. They're trying to find out why they left. They're trying to find out what makes the Watchtower tick. They're all here tonight, and this is where ex-Jehovah's Witnesses come to talk. So we're looking forward to Anne Marie coming on. Hello, Anne Marie, you there with us?
I'm right here with you, my brother Rick. I hear you have a cold. You don't sound so good.
Yeah, no, I do have a cold. Yeah, it's I don't think it's much more than that. I'm able to function. A little congested. But hanging in there, hanging in there. It's the weather up here has been, I don't know if it's the weather or what it was, but I was up the emergency room with Susan a week ago, and this boy, I'll tell you what, this woman came in. She was reeking. She was reeking of alcohol. So I was, oh yeah, she was reeking of alcohol, and she what happened is she sat right next to me, and she is coughing up a storm, and I couldn't. Oh, so I got up and I put a mask on. I'm saying, oh my goodness, I wish this woman didn't sit next to me. And then a few days later, all of a sudden, I start getting congested. Boy.
You caught it.
Yeah. So going to those hospitals, you got to be very careful. You can pick up all kinds of stuff there, Anne Marie. But I don't think it's anything serious. Yeah, in the old days, and then I have to, everyone, people always get colds, and there's a lot of over the counter, NyQuil and Sudafed and all this stuff, and it works to some degree. But a lot of people today they run up to the emergency room. They go to the they go to the local medical clinic to check it out, but it's just a cold for the most part. I mean, if you can't breathe and you're wheezing and hacking like crazy, then obviously you go to the hospital, whatever. But you don't have to go to the hospital because you have a cold. But times are a changing, Anne Marie. I'll tell you that.
Yep, everything's a big drama fest.
So what's going on in your world?
Oh, just had my great-granddaughters picked up, and don't know if I have anything real for the show except one thing, and just looking forward to Six Screen Saturday with my brothers and sisters.
Well, I'll tell you, Anne Marie, on the news tonight when I do it, there is some big monumental changes taking place in the May 1st Watchtower Study Edition. I'm going to go over that tonight. I did an in-depth study on this and reviewed it all, and I'm going to tell you something. The Watchtower is making some big, drastic changes. So that's on the news tonight. So anyone listening in right now, if you want to hear these changes, we're going to talk all about them tonight. Yeah. It's good.
Yeah, I've been listening to some of their craziness. I think they've all been drinking too much and have lost their damn minds.
Well, it totally, we do this all the time, Anne Marie. We've been doing it for years now, you and me and other people here on the network. And it just totally baffles my mind how people can still belong to this evil, corrupt, destructive organization. I have a hard time with it. I mean, you, me, and the listeners on here tonight, and people who'll be calling in, they at least saw the exit door and left. But how is it? How is it that people can stay in this organization and take all of their abuse, to take all of their nastiness, and think the governing body and the organization is the greatest thing on the planet? That I don't get it. I really don't.
Well, they're in their Watchtower fantasy bubble, and they just don't want anything to trip their switch or where they have to kind of pay attention to what's going on, because it's too troubling. It's too traumatic. It's better just to, like Neo. Remember Neo in the first Matrix? Everybody stays asleep and they're in their fantasy world and they think that's normal and they don't want to know the truth.
Well, it's a good explanation, that's for sure. And but I'll tell you what I see here at the Six Screens is that a lot of people are leaving. And there's many reasons. There's many reasons for it. Even this May 1st Watchtower, I'm going to go over tonight on the news. I can see a lot of people will be packing their bags because of this one too. It's almost like the Watchtower is in some type of controlled demolition. It's almost as though it's almost as though they're trying to destroy the organization themselves. It's kind of like imploding. It really does. It's and I have thoughts on that too. But anyways, I'll cut you loose here. I'm here if you need me. So go ahead, Anne Marie. It's your ball game.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that, my brother. I want to welcome everyone into this show, the Touched by the Tentacles of the Watchtower show. Today is Saturday, March 7, 2026. And always I want to welcome the PIMQs first of all. The PIMQs are those who are physically in the Watchtower but mentally questioning. They're still loyal. They're kind of leaning toward, I need to pray. I need to get stronger. What's wrong? It's a scary position. I want to welcome the PMOs. We don't have to worry too much about the PMOs because the PMOs are physically in, but mentally they are out. They are awake. They know the truth about the truth. And you know what they say? Once you know, you can't unknow what you know. Once you're awake, you can't go back to sleep and believe this complete lie. And with Watchtower, I've been listening to so many JW.org and talks given the Bethelites. And, you know, on one hand, we're God's spirit-directed organization, and on the other hand, they're not spirit-directed. They're just doing the best they can. Now, on the other hand, they've said they're the faithful and discreet slave being used by Jesus and Jehovah to dispense spiritual food at the proper time. And then another time they say the Watchtower, I think it was in 2013, they had an article saying that the faithful and discreet slave won't be chosen until the Great Tribulation. They're all over the place. They're green today, they're blue tomorrow, and maybe an hour from now they'll be pink, and then they'll go back again. And no matter what they say, it's the truth. But it's all convoluted. It's all here, there, up, down, brought back, recycled. Now it's old light. Now it's brought back as something different. And it's like they say so many things, and they can't even be consistent in what they say. One elder says this, one governing body member says that, and then they don't talk about it again. And it's like, what do you believe? I mean, how anybody can think that this is the truth, something that is the truth, is stable. It's the truth. It's not going to change. If I told you a story and said that's the truth, and then next week I change it all around and said, well, what I told you last week is old light. Now this is truth. You need to adjust your thinking. Well, it's beyond insane. I think everybody's either had their brain too far warped or what. What I wanted to talk about, at least to start, and I really want to hear anybody's opinion. Why is it? Go ahead.
This is Donald here.
Hi.
That's one reason why, they basically are offering the spirit of confusion because the Bible is not confusing. I mean, the Bible says what it says. The Watchtower, they make up all this stuff, and like you just said about the governing body switching from, well, are we really the governing body? Are we not the governing body? Are we the faithful and the sweet slave? This whole thing is just confusing. It's just confusing people is what it is. And then if you look back through the years of all the things they flip-flopped on, first was this, now it's that again, now it's this again, now it's not that, now it's that again. It's like it's on and off kind of stuff. Like the organ transplants, they kind of flip-flopped on that for a while, and it's just either they have the truth or they don't have it, which they do not have the truth, because all the changes they make, it just proves beyond a shadow that they are not the truth. And whatever these big changes are that Rick's going to talk about later on, because I don't know what they are myself, it's just going to prove them more wrong. It's just going to prove that they're more not the truth. It's not, I mean, like you said, truth does not change. You know, for example, you take off your hat is off. It's not any different. Your hat is off, you know. So they don't tell the truth. They just make it up as they go, is what it is. It's an evil cult. It's an evil religion. It's just a satanic empire is what it is. And while they're calling everybody else's empire a false religion, they're actually the false religion itself.
It's so true, and it's really truly indicative in my mind of how thoroughly the individual teamies, those who are physically in and mentally in, basically completely mentally taken over. It just shows to me clear evidence that they have allowed their minds to be completely turned to mush. It's so easy to rearrange.
And I wonder too, right now with this Iran war going on, I thought the other day, I wonder if they're going to start pulling the Armageddon thing again.
Well, that's usually what their MO is, right? Any catastrophe, Armageddon.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's probably getting too old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just seems like they're saying different things. I keep listening to different governing body members and helpers of the governing body, and this one will say this, and this one will say that. And it's like there's not any type of consistency. There's no structure anymore. It's crazy, and I think you have to be crazy to follow this crazy cult. But when you're crazy, you don't know you're crazy.
And of course, as we all know, it's all about the money. That's why they're changing. It has nothing to do with the love of the people or nothing like that. It's because they want that greenback. They want that money. That's what they're after. That's their God. That's to the witnesses themselves, the governing body is their God. But to the governing body, it's money. It's all about the money they want.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I can't even think.
Witnesses are told to treat the governing body like they're God, but in the governing body, they're after all that money. That's what they want. That's why they change all the time. Because if they really had the truth, then they wouldn't change at all. They'd stick with what they had. Nope. They know they don't have the truth, but they want that money. So they figure, well, we better change some policies because if we want this money, we better make. But the thing is, the sad thing is that even though they make the changes, just making the change proves they don't have the truth.
Exactly. Well,
even if it were God's law as they claim it is, what right would they have to change God's law?
You mean kind of like they rearranged, changed, and added and took away from God's word? They respect His word so much, they decided that they knew how to do it?
No, not that. They claim that everything they say is from God, right? They claim it's all from God. Well, if they claim it's from God Himself, then why are they making changes to what God told them? See, that's what I'm getting at. That would be
exactly bad. Yeah.
They're not. They don't have God listening to them, telling them anything. God ain't there in their meetings at all.
Well, it's like Jesus said, by their fruits you will know them. And what are their fruits? Making money hand over fist, protecting pedophiles. You know, it's just making money. We want more money. And they lie. They literally lie to their followers. And it's disgusting. And we who see it, we can't talk to them because they say we're wicked apostates and we're the liars. And it's like, you know, they've lost their sense of reason. And that's what I wanted to bring out. Thomas Paine said a quote. Thomas Paine said, trying to reason, let's just say trying to reason with a current faithful Jehovah's Witness. He said to argue with a person who has renounced the use of reason is like administering medicine to the dead. Thomas Paine said that. I'm going to say it one more time. To argue or to try to reason with a person who has renounced the use of reason is like administering medicine to the dead. And this made me think of the scripture in Philippians 4, verse 5, and we read this many times as Jehovah's Witnesses. Philippians 4:5 says, let your reasonableness become known to all men. The Lord is near. So to me, if you have completely put aside reason, then the Lord's not going to be near. That's just my interpretation. But we are told, let your reasonableness become known to all men. The Lord is near. I believe God and Jesus are real. We're reasonable. Facts are facts. We have a fact. We have a statement. We can back it up. But somebody who has decided to renounce reasonableness will believe whatever their emotions tell them without any sense of love for facts or caring about the facts or any sense of logic. It's just that's the way it is and you're wrong because I don't agree with you, so therefore you're wrong.
Anne Marie?
Yes, who's this?
This is Matthew from South Africa.
Hello, Matthew from South Africa. How are you? Don't laughing at me. I'm happy to hear you.
Yes, your joy is contagious.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Anne Marie, thank you very much. It's good to be able to smile.
Aww.
And especially when, yes, you were discussing how there's these lies, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's not always a doctrinal thing that's the lie. Sometimes it's a matter of a liability. We've got to say allegedly. But my experience was I would always take transcripts, be very, very careful to transcript things until I discovered that there was this clinical approach to adjusting the congregation files. I was absolutely amazed because if there was anything with a potential liability that came back, they would send their needs graters or the incentivized ones to those congregation files. And unless I had actually witnessed it, and you said to me, if you said to me, no, Matt, this doesn't, or this happens, I would have said, no way, no way. Until I actually did the records, submitted them to witnesses, and could see that the records had variance. It was done in a clinical way so that persons that, how do I say this, allegedly were guilty were protected. Now, Anne Marie, that's just my testimony. Thank you very much.
No, I see it the same way, and thank you so much. My goodness. But my hope is, sooner or later, people have to see the puke for what it is, the BS. It's like, I guess you've heard of Kim and Mikey, and one thing that Mikey said that just really rings so true is an indicative of how Watchtower really is. He said, as faithful Watchtower believers, we were treated like mushrooms, kept in the dark and fed manure. And that is so illustrative of what we really were put through.
Yes.
Kept in the dark and fed manure, basically bullshit. And we believed it. Never questioned it. We were taught. Go ahead.
It happened to my dad, Anne Marie.
Oh, what happened?
I was on the same body as my father, who was the Kobe for years and years, decades.
Yeah.
And I just saw them falsify records to shift him out. And I was able to keep up, with the cognitive load for a while. And when they were doing these accusations and things, was able to absolutely show that it was lies, it was absolute libel, slander, and they had to admit it. They did, they admitted it. But what eventually happened is it wore down my father. So although he was cleared of their, excuse me for my expletive, crap and corruption, although he was cleared of it, he basically said to me, Matt, I have to focus on my wife. I have to focus on this. And whatever these persons have sown, they're going to reap. I'm just going to let nature take its course. I have to do that because I don't have much left in reserve anymore. And I've got to just focus on, yeah.
How awful that they did that, Matthew. I mean, this is just one of thousands of examples of the evil that these true Christians are really capable of with no conscience.
Eventually, I wore down, Anne-Marie. Yeah, my body just, you know what, you can try and override the mind so far, but eventually, you know, somebody in the comments says, congratulations, Matt. You want to know something? Sometimes when the body just stops working, it's actually a blessing, because that was my way out. When I was flat on my back, I think that's what I needed. I need to actually have nature take over and say, Matt, you just got to quit. Stop it now. Stop.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for your suffering, but you know what? This has happened to others. Our dear brother, Dan Laurel Hall, who was the presiding overseer before they did the Kobe arrangement, very faithful Watchtowerite, faithfully helping his brothers, did everything he was supposed to do, but he was a brilliant businessman, and they just destroyed him. They destroyed him until his body literally gave out, and like he said, he was on his back near death. And he told me later he felt it was a blessing because Jehovah or Jesus or God made him realize he was at the bottom and he needed to totally rely on, you know, let's get this figured out. And he really got into the Bible and, you know, started to realize what he was involved with. But if you keep somehow managing to keep going in the Watchtower way, believing and serving and making excuses and, oh, Jehovah will take care of it, and oh, I'm in God's organization, and you keep pushing and pushing and pushing, like you said, it's going to come out one way or another. And I'm sorry you went through it, but I'm glad you went through it.
No, well, you've brightened the day, Anne-Marie, and thanks very much for listening. By the way, I did make you that thumbnail that you asked for, and I sent it to Rick on World News. So it is there somewhere. I don't know if you remember that, but anyway, I made it.
You are too cool. Well, thank you. Okay. Anybody else want to comment on what Donald said or Matthew said, or have your own thought or experience? I'm just kind of looking at how hard it is to try to reason with a dedicated Watchtowerite. And I ran across the quote from Thomas Paine, and that really blew my mind. He said, to argue with a person who has renounced the use of reason is like administering medicine to the dead. Thomas Paine said that. And then that's true to so many when you try to talk to a witness, whether it's your mother, your brother, your grandmother, your grandchild, whatever. They who will not listen, who are just hard-nosed, literally have renounced the use of reason. And that's not normal. It is not normal at all. You have to be pretty far gone and pretty twisted in your mind to have literally renounced the use of reason. So anybody have any thoughts of their own? Something they'd like to share? Who's this? Hello.
Oh, hi, Marie. Kurt, how are you this evening?
I'm happy to hear you. How is my Kurt?
Doing good. I thought I would thank you for taking my call. I thought I'd mention a thing or two. You asked maybe if someone had their own thoughts concerning the Watchtower, and what come to my mind a minute or two ago is in the past, I haven't looked at it and thought at it much lately, but in the past took time and done a lot of research on the SDA church, and of course the Bible students, Russell's relationship to the SDA. And on the YouTube, there are many Seventh-day Adventist independent ministries, but in its relation to the Watchtower is quite extensive.
Oh, yeah.
Was you going to say something? Go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing with you. You're absolutely right. Please continue.
Okay, I'm sorry. My hearing's not really great, but I made a list of everything I could find concerning the SDA church, the remnant church that they believe, Ellen G. White and others believe that God picked out. Now, Russell took a lot of ideas. He had his own ideas as well, but quite a few ideas. And then even with Rutherford and on down through, there's a long list, quite an extensive list of things that could be tied back to the SDA church. Now, one of those things is progressive revelation, new life.
Oh, yeah.
They use that term new light a lot, like the Watchtower does. The problem so much with the Watchtower is there's too much new light, so to speak. And most importantly, a lot of the new light with the Watchtower changes the original truth that they have established. So let me say that one more time. A lot of the new light the Watchtower's had has changed the truth that they had established. This generation is an example, and there's a pretty good list of things that the new light has changed the original truth that they announced, decades ago, and what have you. So and there's a lot of new light, and I think some more of that's going to be discussed tonight. That's what came to mind a minute ago. Those in the Watchtower should be concerned for an explanation about that. How can you explain this new light changing established truth that they had preached for so long and then changed it? So anyway, I want to thank you for taking my call and everything, and I'll go back to YouTube and listen to the rest of your program, Anne Marie. Okay.
Well, thank you, Kurt, and you are so right. There are so many similarities between the Seventh-day Adventists and the Jehovah's Witness religion. And it goes back to William Miller. I believe he was a Baptist farmer or something. He was the one that was calculating when Christ would return and when Armageddon would strike at the end of the world. And he ended up with a large following. And then when it didn't come on the date he had set, then he recalculated and he came up with another date. I think it was 1849 or something. I don't know. But he had quite a following. And then when that didn't happen, I think it was called the Great Disappointment of whatever year it was that it failed. And they splintered, and you had the Second-day Adventists and the Seventh-day Adventists. And Russell, I think he was maybe 17, 18, 19, a very young man. And I believe he was raised a Presbyterian or a Pentecostal. I don't know what he was raised, something with a B. And he was walking one summer night, and he happened to be passing by a church where the doors were all open because it was a hot summer night, and he could hear the preacher talking about this and talking about that. Well, Russell had always had a trouble with believing that, hell was real. And this preacher was basically saying, hell is basically symbolic or whatever. So he got involved with that. But that is like the core not only that, but, you know, his involvement in being a 33rd degree Masonry, there's also a lot of correlation between the secrets of Masonry and the Seventh-day Adventists. So you have the Watchtower organization, basically bastard child of all of this stuff come together. And it's interesting because there's a lot of the Masonry that talks about the Blue Lodge, you know, the core of all the teachings and beliefs and secret this and secret that is the Blue Lodge. And you know, the jw.org stamp that's on every single Kingdom Hall and Assembly Hall, that shade of blue is the very shade of blue of the Masons' Bible that they use on their altar, and the color of their Blue Lodge, that exact same shade. And I venture to think that most Jehovah's Witnesses have no idea why that shade of blue is on their jw.org, or that they're basically copying, you know, Masonry. I mean, it's like when they first used to meet in Mason halls, and as the movement grew, somebody decided, gee, we can't say Mason halls, we got to rename them. So they renamed them Kingdom Halls. Even when I was a kid, we used to hold our assemblies in the Masonic Temple. Masonic Temple, you would think that's crazy, but we never thought anything of it.
That's a good rendition of all of that. I listened to every word. That great disappointment of October 1843, and then a year later in October 1844, that great disappointment was changed. The miracle change to that was that Christ was expected to come back to earth in the flesh. He didn't, second advent, he didn't show up. So they came up, there's a lot of details to it. They came up with an invisible presence of Christ in heaven. He entered the most holy and started an investigative judgment. So the doctrine of the investigative judgment. Now, this invisible presence with Russell, the parousia, took on a different meaning with a lot of different details. But yeah, there's a long list of things that were the SDA, and the way it relates to our Watchtower organization is quite extensive. And what I wanted to focus on, and thank you for letting me speak, is the progressive or the new light. Progressive revelation is great. It's a great doctrine in the SDA, and it's carried forth in the Watchtower organization as well. So anyway, thank you so much, Anne-Marie, for letting me speak. I'm sure there's a lot of you always have all kinds of people wanting to talk to you. So I'll get out of the way and go back to you two. Okay? All right.
Okay, my brother Kurt, thank you so much for calling in, and you never have to rush yourself. This show is for you. What's that?
I'm going to send out a shout out hello to Kurt, and also he's correct about the Seventh-day Adventists. So many of the teachings are so similar to the witness teachings, but we get steak, you know, that's the difference. They've got their own vegetarian cookbooks and things, which is healthy, and they have a great cookbook, but that's really the main difference.
Hi, Pixie. I'm going to go back to YouTube. Hello, Pixie. And I'm going back to YouTube. Yeah. Hello. And thank you all. And I'll get out of your way. But hello, Pixie. And okay. And talk with you guys later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kurt. Bye-bye. What's on your mind, Dixie?
I'm just having a good Saturday.
Good.
Watching old movies with Shirley MacLaine. She was in one with Gene Kelly where they had a pink Rolls Royce, and her coat is pink and her hair is pink. It's really cute.
She's a character.
She did that pink hair before Cyndi Lauper.
Oh.
It was in the 1962, I think. Let me get the title of the movie here. You know, times have been so rough recently. We kind of need escape. My goddaughter loves Bridgerton, so I'm going to start watching that.
All right. Anyone else on the line want to comment?
It's actually called Brigadoon, the Gene Kelly movie, Dixie. And
I'm looking for it. It's
and not to correct it.
What a Way to Go. The title is What a Way to Go.
What a way to go. Wait a minute. That was a great movie. What a way to go.
And Pixie, it's called Brigadoon. Brigadoon.
Oh.
And that's the famous movie where Gene Kelly, and it's,
Oh, I live in Brigadoon. I live in Brigadoon. I know that movie.
And it's Paradise Earth. Will you basically leave this earth to go into Paradise Earth? And that was the dilemma that he had to make. It's really beautiful.
Right.
It's really beautiful.
Right, and Gene gets married in the movie, and then he doesn't know if he can get back in time to his own time, and that's a great one.
Mm-hmm. It's just like the same movie with Christopher Reeves and what's her name, when he goes back in time.
That's a good one.
But Kurt made a great comment, and he asked the question, so I raised up my hand because he wanted to know who could answer the thing about the Watchtower New Light. And I am of the belief of the keep it simple silly, or keep it simple silly, KISS. And
keep it simple stupid, or keep it simple sweetheart. I know.
Yeah. So the answer is real simple. Why Watchtower says new light, for the same reason they call the religion the truth. Because if you have something new, it generally means that you have replaced something old with something new. We all do this every day. So if they have new light, what was the old light? So they're replacing Jesus, because Jesus is the light, and they're replacing Jesus with a new light. That's why they call the truth the religion, when Jesus is the truth. So they're always stealing from Jesus. They even build halls and dedicate them to Jehovah, Jesus as Father, and then they steal Jesus' house, and they sell it to the Catholics or to who knows who. But the point is they're always stealing. Jehovah's Witnesses, and they steal with words. They say the truth and they say new light. And those words are a direct insult to Jesus Christ. So any Christian who believes that Jesus is a light would say, no. There's no such thing as new light. Because there's a Bible verse that talks about a different Jesus. Anything that's not the light is not we should avoid. But that's how the Jehovah's Witnesses stray people out of Jesus. They use these clever little words like the truth, new light, and it's always drawing people away from.
Yep. They're very manipulative.
Yeah. So it's real simple. And if you just listen to what they say, they're always telling you, in their words, what they're doing.
Yeah. Very well said.
Okay, let's go.
Very well said. Any further you'd like to add? Remember, this is your show.
I think you make some brilliant points. It seems topsy-turvy to me. And the longer I'm away from it and look back into it, every teaching seems topsy-turvy.
It is topsy-turvy. Go ahead, brother. I don't want you to think you're being ignored.
A voice in the wilderness. This is Chris from Arizona.
Hi, Chris.
And as usual, I'm having a great time. The old movies kind of got me sidetracked, but I live in a little hamlet outside of Tombstone, and their moniker is the town too tough to die. And I thought of the Watchtower as the organization too corrupt to give up.
I have to write that down. Too corrupt to give up. Oh, that's a good one.
So anyway, talk about these old movies. I taught Fred Astaire with that scene, Dancing on the Ceiling.
Yeah.
Do you remember that, when the whole room rotated and he was dancing around the walls and so forth? Fred Astaire. I think
that was a long time ago. Yeah.
I think it was called Royal Wedding, something like that. In any event, James Powell, I believe, was his co-star.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so that being said, born in, been out since about 2004, successfully faded, did the whole shebang, publisher, ministerial servant, finished off as an elder for about 8 years, and that was what finally did me in.
Aww.
Well, hey, I'm here. I'm with you guys, so it's cool. It's okay.
Well, I am happy you're here.
Into the cool ones. We got the show That's Entertainment 1 and That's Entertainment 2 has all the Gene Kelly, all the Fred Astaire, and all the Sid Charisse in 2 volumes.
Remarkable. I wanted to tell a quick story. A quick story of woe. W-O-E. Okay. No? Yes, no?
Well, I'm just listening, kind of like, okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I'll keep talking and then be like, yeah, I have a bunch of stories from my experiences. I thought I would share one of them. I was reading, I believe the site I was on was called XJW Analyzer. And what got me was one of the commentators where they write the comments on the show that he was presenting. It reminded me of exactly what happened to me. My mother, I was born in, my mother raised us, tried to raise us up as good JWs. She was so loyal up until her death. She died in her 80s. But you know what? It struck me because the story that this person wrote about his mother was my exact experience. My mom was, coming up, she got baptized, I believe, around 1961 or 62. Pioneer, field service, attended all the meetings, dragged us to them. And, like I say, I eventually started towing the line. I rebelled for a while. But at the end of it all, my mother put all these years in. And towards the end, starting in the 90s, I think it was around then when they started spitting out some of the elders from Bethel. And an elder rolled into the city where I used to live. My mom hosted a book study for so many years, but she was in her declining health. And so she would host the book studies at her home, but sometimes she couldn't attend. She would lay in the bedroom and just listen in and so forth. But she'd always put out refreshments, this and that, and everyone had a great time. And you know what? This elder came from Bethel. He immediately said, "No, this sister, she wasn't able to go out in field service and so forth because she was getting old and sick." Anyway, he said, "No, you can't have the book study here anymore. You're not." I don't know what the term used, weak spiritually, not up to snuff. That broke her heart. And anyway, at the end of it all, I moved to Arizona some years ago. She moved out here and she spent her winters in a nice little park model mobile home next to us. But you know what? She died just absolutely disillusioned. And even though I had faded, and I actually resigned as an elder successfully without getting DF'd or anything, or disassociated, whatever you want to call it, she was always good to us and some other friends that I knew that had been disfellowship. She always took us all in as her own. And she, yeah. Anyway, it was just, so anyway, the story there, the way they treat people, just throw them on the ash heap at the end of it all.
Now, I really feel for your mother, and I really appreciate your sharing that. My mom got baptized in 61 as well. And back then, when we used to have book studies in private homes, and it was called the Book Study Center because we also met there for service.
Yes,
in the 60s. Yeah, so it was called the Book Study Center. You not only had your book study every Tuesday, but every Saturday, that's where you met for service. And my mother was not well.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's same situation with my mom. You just reminded me about the field service. Yeah.
Yeah. And so just like you were saying about your mom, my mom was not well. She had a really nasty autoimmune disorder that caused her so much trouble. But she was always gracious and kind and did what she could. And the elders got on her about her not getting out in service. And she tried to explain her illness and how she felt. And she got put down and like, well, Sister so-and-so has cancer and she's a pioneer. And my mom quietly said to him, but she has the energy. This, and it's like you're put down and you're put down because you never are good enough and you're never doing enough. And I thought that was so sweet that my mom opened up her home and faithfully provided a comfortable place for brothers and sisters to come have their service, meeting for service, and the book study every Tuesday, just like your mom did. And what did she get? Did she get, thank you, sister? Thank you for doing the best you can for your brothers?
Nope.
They are so cold.
Unbelievable. Well, anyway, that's I've got some more tales, but I mean, my career, I'll share those maybe down the line. I just wanted to commend you. I love this show. I love Rick's show. You guys are the kings of XJW's site. So I'll continue to listen. I'm glad I got to come in on a live broadcast broadcast for a change. So.
Well, I'm glad you did too, and I hope you don't leave and anything else comes up in your mind. Remember, this is your show. The callers make the show. I'm just here to listen.
Yeah. You're like, have you ever heard the term Dutch uncle?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're like my Dutch aunt. You're soft, you're kind, and you're wise.
Aww. That'll make me smile for the rest of the day.
You know what your
I'm out of here. Okay.
No, don't go. You know what your mom. You know what your mom experienced. Your mom experience. I was thinking about it right now. Your mom experienced, and also Anne Marie's mom experienced. Now they know how Jesus felt. Remember when Jesus cured the lepers, and how many of them came back and said thank you?
Was it one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you imagine how he felt? Like, man, not even a thank you. Like maybe a nice little loaf of bread, with some sugar on top, or say thank you. I got you some food. I got you some dates from my mom's house. Not even a thank you. And so that's how
that was.
So all of you, your family members that went through that, they have a first-hand experience of how Jesus felt and everybody else felt. It's really interesting. So it does make you stronger at the very end. Unfortunately, we have to go through it.
Amen. I think that's true, because now I do consider myself a stronger person.
What's your name? Commenting on what Chris was saying here. What's your name? Or what do we call you? Huh?
It's Gigi.
Say that again.
G.
Oh, Gigi.
Yes.
As in girly girl? Okay. I'm messing with you.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay, Marie, I'm going to get off the phone, but I'll continue listening.
Oh, please do. And I'm so glad you called in.
Okay.
Would anybody else like to put in a comment on what the brothers and sisters have said? Anything Donald or Matthew or Kurt or Pixie or Chris or Gigi said? Your own thoughts? This is your show. Anybody have a thought? Have you ever tried to witness or tried to even point out something about the Watchtower organization that's right there in their own literature, or right there in one of the talks that's on jw.org, or one of the talks that they gave to the Bethelites, and they don't want to hear it? They have no reasoning. They absolutely have to reason.
I begin to think a lot of them really are the C students, because when I was trying to go back in and have that Bible study before my mother was gone, she was still with us. She was in her right mind and sharp as a tack at 100. And I'm having that Bible study, and the sister comes and brings soup. This is before she tried to extort the house. And I'm going through the Bible study lesson, and I'm reading the paragraph. And the sister picks me apart for reading the paragraph. And I put the book down, and I looked her in the eye, and I said, the paragraph only has 3 sentences. I didn't make up the answer. Look again at the paragraph. It was that moment that I had proof that they tried to belittle you in the Bible study.
Oh, Pixie, that's disgusting.
She couldn't get out of that one, because that was the shortest paragraph that I've ever seen.
Wow, 3 sentences.
And she said, that's not the right answer. That's not this. That's not that. She was using that Bible study to demean me and tear me down.
Oh.
But the hilarious thing is, my mother was like an empress. She had an attitude. And to have that sister with the same kind of personality and attitude, to see those two together was kind of hilarious. Because my mother would turn to her and say, well, why can't my daughter pray at her own Bible study? Or, this is not the religion I remember.
Your mom was sharp. She said it like it was.
She sure was. But I will remember forever those 3 sentences in that paragraph where she picked apart every answer I had. And that was, I mean, it was so simplistic. You couldn't make up anything.
She must have been one twisted piece of work.
She was red sports car. She was all her clothes new at Chico's when most of us bought at thrift. She would bring food and stuff. And then the one day, now I did care, round the clock care for years. My mom's back in the rehab. I go and I'm getting the paperwork to get her to bring her home, which we did, and she had years at home after that. The sister goes and sits with her and for 2 days while I sleep. And if you've been a caregiver, you know this occasionally becomes important.
Absolutely.
So they paid to have the social service lady there do a makeover and lipstick and all. Mom was happy. They were playing house at the rehab and trying to keep her busy, and they went 2 days in a row. So after day 3, I got the paperwork and got her home and was back to carrying at home and making the food and all. The sister has the audacity to come to my house for the next Bible study and says, well, you're going to pay me for the time I spent with your mother in rehab, aren't you?
Are you freaking serious?
And I looked at her with a blank poker face and I said, excuse me? Doesn't that take the cake? Doesn't that take the cake?
I have no words. That is so beyond.
It was, because doesn't she get Pioneer hours for that? And I didn't ask her to go and sit with Mom at the rehab either. Because she'd been to that rehab before and they knew her and they knew me and I knew the social worker at that one. Usually the more visits you have at the hospital or rehab, the better. But I needed to sleep and I didn't even ask her to do that. And then we got, this takes cake. Then we got a official complaint against her from the rehab against this lady with the sports car.
Well, sounds like she had it coming. She didn't sound like a truly good person.
I wouldn't, if I look in the dictionary under Christian, I wouldn't see her picture there. I might see her picture under con artist in the dictionary. I might see her picture there. Or
there you go.
Or a person that wants to take your house. But you know, it's as my mother said, it's not the religion I remember. You know, it's not.
Exactly.
It's not the Bible students, and it's not. You know, those old books they had and trying to find out what the Bible says. It's not.
Yeah, it's not the religion I remember. I often said, even if I really was serious about going back, I can't go back because the Watchtower that I knew and grew up with, all the things that we were taught, they don't teach it anymore.
No.
None of it. It's all craziness. It's all about apostates. Don't listen to apostates. They're all liars from Satan, and we need more money, and we need more money, and we need more money. And just, you know, they don't talk about spiritual things. No encouragement. It's just do more. We need more of your money.
And, you know, if I was running a church and I had in my heart, I would want to be keen on Bible prophecy in a time like today. And they've thrown out what they kind of copyrighted almost. It's crazy stuff. Well, anyway, have a happy Saturday.
Okay, brother, who's this? Was that Stephen trying to tweet?
Yes, I was. Hi, Emery, and hi, Betsy.
Hi.
I have a I have two incidents about talking to witnesses about stuff in their own material. The first one, and I think the most bizarre one, was there was a Watchtower back when I was still teeny, and it was on the topic of who runs the congregation. And it's the typical Watchtower cognitive dissonance I begin to be aware of. The first half of the Watchtower clearly establishes how Jesus runs the congregation. He has the elders in his hand and all of that. And then the second half establishes that it's the elders who run the congregation. Now you're sitting there, well, which one is it? You know, because you're saying two things. And of course, it was very confusing. So there's one brother, when we got to this one paragraph, this one brother raised his hand, and this was a brother who was notorious for putting his comments in his own words. Notorious. Never, ever would he read verbatim almost a answer out of the magazine. It was always in his own words. He raised his hand, they called on him, and he literally read verbatim this one sentence that clearly showed that Jesus is in charge of the congregation. The elder on the stage looked very panicked, and his eyes started darting around the auditorium until he found an elder, and an elder said, well, no, it's really the elders that run the congregation. Now, the man read verbatim what the Watchtower actually said. And so when the brother did that, this same brother raised his hand again, and he was almost jumping out of his seat. He didn't, but he was very excitedly, and I'm sure he would have just reread the same comment, but they wouldn't even call on him. They wouldn't call on him for the rest of the lesson. It was just very bizarre. So the next thing that happened was the next local needs, which I recall correctly, was about 2 weeks from then. An elder who was not even present at that meeting gave the first and only marking talk that I'd ever experienced. I've heard of marking talks. I never experienced one, but he actually gave a marking talk, and he was saying, yeah, if there was someone who was saying that the elders are not running the congregation, this, that, and the other, and basically he was saying in the marking talk, if that was said again, that person would be disfellowshipped. And I just said to myself, God. Yeah, and I was married at the time, and I said to myself, hold on a minute. I said, this is what the Watchtower said. The man read verbatim. He didn't take away or add to. And for that, you're going to set up a marking talk. And I was saying to myself, this brother needs to call Bethel. And I don't know if you should file a complaint. I didn't know much about the workings of the organization, but he needs to call on that or get the circuit overseer. Just how dare you go up? And everybody knew who he was talking about. And like I said, he wasn't even there. And in any event, I said, if I ever hear something like that happen again, I said, I'm leaving this congregation. Okay, and then the second one very quickly about how people react when you show them information in their own literature. This had to do with that infamous statement by that idiot Stephen Lett that babies are enemies of God. Now, he said that, if I recall correctly, on the morning session of the first day of a district convention.
Yes.
And right away, I called my ex-wife and I said, did Stephen Lett really say that babies are enemies of God? Because this was all over the internet in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community at this point. And I think this was still near COVID, where everything was kind of videoed ahead of time, and you just watch the convention. And so, of course, she went off on me. Oh, no. He would never say something like that. See, that's your problem. You go online and you listen to all this hateful stuff and all these apostates. I said, so you're saying he never said that? He would never say something like that. I said, okay. I said, go to the convention, go to the morning, because I Googled it very quickly. And somebody replied back, it's a morning session, and it's exactly at this moment in the tape. Sure enough, she plays it. So she flips on a dime and says, well, I guess it's true that babies are enemies of God. I said, no, it's not true. I said, that is a bald-faced lie. I said, and that's not even scriptural. And I went to the account where the night before Jesus was executed and the children came to him and his apostles went to shoo them away. And he said, no, let them come to me, for the kingdom of the heavens belongs to them. Now, the kingdom of the heavens can't belong to an enemy of God. I said, see, that's not even scriptural.
No.
I said, so you explain to me how this so-called governing body member can stand there in front of all you guys and say something that is blatantly not scriptural. And she couldn't open her mouth. She just looked at me, and she was so angry because, of course, there was nothing she could say. So anyway, those are two incidents, and I just wanted to relay those since we're on that topic.
No, I appreciate you brought out that, because when they come up with such craziness like that, and such, to me, that is evil, to call an innocent baby an enemy of God. Who the F are you? I'm sorry. If I had been sitting in that audience with my beautiful children, I can't imagine that I would not have just not only been in shock, but how dare you, and grabbed my children and walked out. And I think I would have looked back at Stephen Lett and said, how dare you?
I'm with you on that one. And like I said, that's not even scriptural. Jesus would not have said, let the young ones come to me if they were enemies of God. He said the kingdom of the heavens belongs to them. I guess he's saying, hey, you grown-ups, you're the ones that, you're going to have to worry about whether you're getting to the kingdom of the heavens, but the babies are going. So that's what I said. This man is not even teaching scripture. He's actually saying something in direct opposition. I said, how do you justify that? And like I said, she couldn't explain. And you want to know something really bizarre?
That's where they go topsy-turvy. It's totally opposite of the teaching.
It is.
And I'll tell you something that's really bizarre. I just happened to be watching TV one day, and I was just channel surfing, and this was a few years after that. And there was some reverend, and he was up there hooping and hollering, the way that they do. And you know what he said, Anne-Marie? He said the exact same thing, that babies were enemies of God. And that was one of the times when I realized that all these pastors, so-called pastors and preachers and all the rest of it, they are all obviously pulling from the same book, or they're all listening to each other. So Watchtower is getting some of these that they've heard that we wouldn't know because we don't listen to these other pastors, because of course you're commanded not to, but they listen to it, and they're all borrowing each other's lines, because this man said the exact same thing that Stephen Lett said. And nobody's going to be able to convince me that these two guys came up with these ideas uniquely on their own. They're all listening to each other and stealing and borrowing each other's talking points.
And didn't Psalm 127 somewhere say something about children being a blessing, and happy is the man who has filled his quiver with them?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it is 127 of Psalms says that, verse 3, look, sons are an inheritance from Jehovah. The fruit of the womb is a reward, like arrows in the hand of a mighty man. So are the sons of one youth. Happy is the man who fills his quiver with them, the children. They will not be put to shame. This is referring to children, Psalms 127 in the New World Translation. So what the hell was Let Smoking for him to come up on stage and say to the flock of the Watchtower that their babies were enemies of God? That is, of all the garbage. It's just,
and you see the cult control aspect of it, because the cult, you remember in the early days of Watchtower, they didn't even want you to get married if you worked at headquarters. It was years before they did, and the reason why is because they want you to devote all of your attention to them. If you're married, well, part of your attention is going to go to your wife. And if you have children, of course, part of your attention has to go to your children. So they don't want you to have children. And they use this as a false pretense. And then also he could have been saying that to just kind of desensitize people to the children, knowing that there's all this pedophilia that's going on. So if you're just viewing children as little enemies of God, then I guess it won't bother you. So who knows? But that just shows you the cult aspect of this organization. Thanks, Anne-Marie.
Thank you so much, Stephen, and thank you for bringing out that point. And it's sad because I looked at, and the ones that did have children were constantly counseled to beat their children. And a lot of people in the Watchtower deny, and they were counseled to beat their children, always reciting those scriptures, I think in Proverbs, about the rod of discipline, and in case you beat him with the rod, he won't die, but you'll remove his soul from evil or whatever. And it's your child wasn't a perfectly behaved little robot Watchtower child, oh, you are not doing your job as a spiritual parent. Even babies were being hit. And we actually thought that that was God's will because it was pounded into us. And it's a sick organization, and there are plenty of examples that show this is a sick, twisted, evil organization. To hurt children, tell parents they have to beat their children, no.
Anne-Marie?
Yes, he did.
It's Matthew again.
Hi, Matthew again. What's up? Talk to me.
Well, Stephen made some really great points, and also I'm staring at Jeffrey Jackson's testimony at the ARC. That was Friday, 14th August 2015, day 155. And he specifically said, as an organization, we do not encourage corporal punishment.
I heard that. I was just listening to it today.
Huh.
Like it was all a lie. And they asked him specifically, and he denied it.
Yep. And then guess what happened last year? Yeah. Last year, July, on the 14th, around the world in various jurisdictions where it was illegal, elders overstepped with the corporal punishment, and persons acted on it with 2-year-olds, Anne-Marie. Stephen absolutely
makes me sick. It makes me sick.
Well, anyway, look, we put it, I gathered it all after processing it. Here it was. I asked governing body family, I said, now tell me, what should be done in this situation? They wrote to me and they said, you need to correct the elders. But I made sure I got it in writing. And then when they realized they were the guilty ones, of course, I just handed it to the police. But it kind of gets to a stage where it's like Norway, you get to an impasse. But just to back up Stefan with what they did to that poor chap in the congregation where he answered straight out of the Watchtower. If they're getting combative, what I did in a situation where they were trying to eliminate people, I took Anthony Griffin. I don't know if you're familiar with Anthony Griffin. He's a helper. I took one of his talks, which was the model talk that was rated A1 around the world, where they said to elders, please follow along with the outline. And I presented it in the congregation with it on record, so that, you know, some of the sound rooms record this. And of course, the brothers tore that talk to pieces.
Oh, you're kidding.
Oh, yes, but...
Oh, my God.
But they needed to be caught out. And so because it was on record and it was sent over Zoom, I said, well, what did you find was wrong with the talk, brothers? They said, no, this information is incorrect here. Exactly like what Stefan was talking about. And I said, right, let's take a look at the outline. Can you specifically show where it went wrong? They went quiet. So
I bet they did.
This talk was Anthony Griffin's talk. Here it is on record, and here is the outline. Take a look, and you're all on record now, because you have become combative with the congregation, and you now think that you're above the governing body and your own theocracy. But the reason for this is because you have got the plan to eliminate people from the congregation because they're exposing you. That's what the reason is. That's what happened. So, Stefan, your story, it's on the money, but it's when there is some kind of liability and they're trying to eliminate people. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Well, thank you. And that just makes me remember Philippians 4, verse 5, let your reasonableness become known to all men. we have heard clear examples just on this show so far of the incredible lack of not only not having any sense of reasonableness, but being really twisted in their thinking to the point where they don't even make sense.
That does make sense in a way, though. If that Bible study teacher was trying to get me disinterested in having a Bible study so she could get my mother's house.
Yeah. Well, that was just messed up. I think a lot of people in the Watchtower are mentally or emotionally just screwed up because they're just not normal.
Well, she was criminal. She was real criminal.
I agree. Thank God you were there, Pixie. Anybody else want to comment, have a thought? This show is for you. I always love to hear what you all have to say. Any idea of somebody or remembering an experience where somebody just really wasn't reasonable? That's where arrogance and attitude and egomaniacs get in line. So I can't think of any, yeah, who's this? This Matthew again?
This is Stephen again. I had a funny one, I'll tell you.
Please do.
That same brother that I've told you about that was disfellowship for 18 years, he was in a committee meeting with elders trying to get reinstated. And there was a younger brother who had always kind of been a regular pioneer. And at this hall, they had appointed him an elder. I don't know exactly how long he had been one, but I kind of had previous history with him before. And so they were talking, and my friend, I don't know how they got on this topic, but my friend brought up the fact that Watchtower teaches that the 144,000 are the only ones that go to heaven, and that the Bible is not for the rank and file Jehovah's Witnesses. It is really only for the anointed.
I remember
and
that
while
teaching.
He was talking, yeah, well, that's still a present teaching as far as I know. And while he mentioned that, this younger elder, and I knew him because his family is from Nigeria, and we knew some of the same people from Nigeria. And this young brother literally jumped up and was in my friend's face, screaming at him about, see, that's your problem, and that's why you're disfellowship, and you don't know the Bible. The Bible is for everybody. And he read that verse that talks about, how the Bible's for everybody. And so my friend told me, he said, I looked around him and I looked at the older elder that I was talking about, and he was like, you need to get him out of my face, because if I stand up, you're going to be carrying him out of here. He said, so you need to get this guy. So they told the elder, sit down. This is not how we behave. And then the elder looks at him and says, what that brother said is correct. That is the current teaching, that 144,000 only ones that go to heaven, and the Bible is intended only for those ones, even though we read it and benefit from it, but it's a letter of God to the anointed. And he said he looked at the younger elder and his mouth was on the ground. He never knew that. And my friend said to him, how are you an elder and you don't even know that? He says, you are a joke. And he was right. He was a joke. But it was just interesting how you deal with these elders and they don't even know the things that we know, because, like you said, we read the magazines and the books, and we've listened, and we've been attending meetings and so forth for decades. We have a knowledge base these younger people don't have. So I can imagine those types of conversations are probably being had all over the place now that they've got these younger guys serving as elders in the local congregations.
I can't imagine how they stay there. I mean, they must be so confused that they just push it all to the side and say, oh, well, I just stay with the organization and Jehovah will work it out. The old excuses. Don't use your brain.
Yeah.
Don't check out the facts.
Yeah.
Don't be reasonable. Don't be logical. Just follow the organization. Well, what about follow the Bible? What about God? What about Jesus?
Nope, none of that matters. And I had a conversation with an older elder, and I was saying to him, I said, because we were talking about being elder, and I said, I don't necessarily know that's really anything I'm really interested in. I said, because you guys don't even have freedom of speech. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, you can't say, let's say you were an elder for 30, 40 years, for example, and you've raised, you're married, you've raised children, you've had all kinds of experiences, you studied with your kids, you've dealt with all of this, but you can't even speak from your own experience. You have to pretty much go strictly by what this society tells you. And he's like, no, that's not true. I said, no, it is true. I said, because if you say something to me and I go and I bring you a Watchtower that says something different, you have got to apologize and say, no, you're right. I'm sorry. The Watchtower does say that. You don't have any freedom of speech. And I said, you can say something today, but you know darn well that you're never going to be 100% comfortable with what you said, because for all you know, Watchtower could have changed its position, and you might not have known that they changed, or they can change the position tomorrow, and now you look like an idiot because of what you just said. I said, I just can't see me being a part of that. You can't use your own life experiences, and you don't know if what you said today is going to be outdated tomorrow. I said, I couldn't survive in that kind of an environment. That makes no sense.
For real.
And you can't even go by what the Bible says. You have to go by what Watchtower says. And you're clearly reading the Bible, but if Watchtower says the sky is purple and you're looking at the sky and the sky is blue, you got to convince everybody the sky is purple. That's insane.
Yeah.
That is insanity. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
It's exactly that way. And when we mentioned freedom, I thought it was very interesting in the New World Translation at 2 Corinthians 3:17. It says very clearly, now Jehovah is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of Jehovah is, there is freedom. Well, obviously, there being freedom would be indicative of God's Spirit being there. So since, like you said, there's no freedom in Watchtower. You can't express yourself. You can't disagree. You can't even point out an inconsistency that's right there in their own magazine. You do not have the freedom. You don't have freedom for anything. If they, the guy almost got slapped down and threatened with being disfellowshipped because he read what was right there in the Watchtower.
Exactly.
Stuff like that.
Nuts. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy.
But at least we can talk. On this show, we have the freedom to say the truth and to really look at the way it really is instead of making up all kinds of excuses. Oh, well, Jehovah will take care of it. Oh, well, this is the truth. We just have to follow along. We don't understand, but we obey. What was that, the November 15th Watchtower 2013, where they first came out for the first time about, whatever instructions or directions we receive from the governing body, we just, even if it doesn't make sense, we just have to obey.
I don't know the year, but yes, I know that article. And can I say one more thing, Anne-Marie? I was reading in Isaiah not too long ago, meaning like Thursday. Yeah, I think it was Thursday. And it took me back to my childhood. And I want to know if you remember this. When I was a kid in this organization, they used to read these verses in Isaiah, and say that it was about Satan the devil. And the verse had to do with, you become, an enlightened one, or Lucifer, so to speak. And they would always say that this verse was about Satan the devil, because God didn't create the devil created himself, and they would read that verse. And one day, I think I was a teenager, and I was studying for the meeting, and I read this chapter in Isaiah as part of the Bible reading. And it is clearly talking about the Babylonian king. I forget which one it is, but it's clearly talking about the Babylonian king. And I said, wait a minute. I said, my whole youth, they said that this verse was an explanation of how Satan created himself. But yet when you read the verse and you read the context of the chapter, it is a condemnation against, I believe it was Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. And I remember asking an elder, I said, I'm confused on something. He's like, what's that? And I said, my whole youth, this section of verses in Isaiah was always used as an explanation of how Satan got so full of himself and he wanted the worship that only rightly was supposed to go to God, and so forth and so on. And he turned himself into the devil. I said, but yet when you read this whole chapter, this is doing nothing but talking about Babylon.
Yeah.
And he looked at me, and he looked at the verse, and he read it, and he looked at me, and he looked at the verse, and he read it, and he said, you know, I remember that. And he goes, and they don't even talk about that in the context of Satan anymore. It's only in the context of Babylon. And he said, I don't know what to tell you. He goes, all I know is now, yeah, this verse is only about Babylon. But that was kind of a, you know, even when I was a kid, I used to read stuff and be like, you guys said that this means this. But when I'm looking at this doesn't mean that. And that Gog of Magog was another example that Watchtower just got wrong. So it's really interesting that we're talking about this. All this stuff is starting to come back to my mind now.
Hello, Anne-Marie.
Yes, Kurt.
Hey, well, I tell you, this is such a good program tonight. So much good conversation. So much good conversation. People love to talk to you. You and Dixie and Stephen, in particular, the three of you were talking a little bit earlier about Stephen Lett's comments, and I found them very shocking. Fundamentalism across in our world in Christianity is really receded. The Watchtower, you've probably heard me say it before, is very fundamental, and the twisting of Scripture. Has to be applied to some extent.
Right, I'm listening, Kurt. I think somebody needs to mute their phone.
Okay. I don't want to keep you, but just a minute here. But I had to bring this out. In the Scriptures, the doctrine of original sin, you know, where we're born in the world in a sinful condition, those that are become friends of Jehovah, so to speak, they're born again and they're adopted as sons. Even in the Old Testament, the Israelites that were picked out as a nation to be kings and priests were called the children of Israel, or the sons of Israel. Sons of God in the Old Testament was Adam and Solomon. Solomon pictured, as David did, Solomon pictured Christ Jesus. But in the New Testament, the adoption of sons. But this doctrine is very fundamental, and it's twisted. Now, Stephen also mentioned, and I'm in agreement with him, the kingdom belongs to the children. Now, what the Watchtower does with that is say that's not literal, but it's hyperbole, where those that are of the 144,000 are like children. They're easy to teach, and they have that childlike faith, at least in the beginning, and of course the faith grows. So they take these things, and we could argue that they twist them. But Stephen Lett, again, I want to say that he talking that way, that paragraph is shocking, and he should have never went there. Just too much, too overwhelming for our minds. But that's what they would argue. They would argue in retrospect that's where he was coming from. So I know you guys know these things. I thought I'd mention them. But again, the fundamentalism across the churches of Christ, the churches in general are really losing membership, and the Watchtower incredibly is receding. So anyway, thank you for letting me speak again. I'll go back to YouTube. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie and you guys, and I'll speak with you later. But bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Are you there, Anne-Marie? Well, I don't know what happened to Anne-Marie.
Oh, I forgot to unmute. I liked what Chris Seven, I think it was, when he talked about reading a scripture in context And when he read the scripture in context, a teaching that he had had ingrained in him all those years from Watchtower, he realized that reading the scripture in context made the teaching that he had been taught completely wrong. And that's according to the Bible. And that's one thing. We need to be like the Bereans. Read the scriptures, examine the scriptures daily as to whether these things are so. Watchtower doesn't want you to do it. They spin you this big propaganda little speech and then say, let's look at this scripture, which they present things and put a picture up in your mind and get your brain ready to hear a scripture that they recite as if that scripture from God's word is backing up whatever they said. And that is really using and abusing and manipulating the word of God. That is disrespect of God's word to the highest order, in my opinion. Any thoughts, Lev? Yes.
Hey, it's RJ here.
Ooh, RJ. How's my brother?
I'm doing great tonight.
Well, good.
I'm going to try to stay on topic. We're talking about contradictions and like changes in the organization.
And them not having any sense of reasonableness.
And you know, looking back at the time I was in, like the 6-year period, they were pretty consistent. They didn't have many changes from 2002 to 2008. Like, I don't remember any changes. You kind of knew what you were getting back then.
Wow. I guess they had it pretty good. They made drastic changes and then they stayed in whatever new avenue of preaching and teaching and propaganda for the same. But, you know, I came in the early 60s, 60, 61, 62, all through the 60s. And then, you know, part of the 70s, I went back in the 70s, and I remember the 80s, and it was always strong. It always seemed like, you know, they were deep in the Bible, you know, the book of Ezekiel and the letter of James, commentary on the letter of James. And we were always taking the all scripture inspired of God book to every single Thursday meeting. And everything was so thorough and so methodical. And it seemed like we were really getting meat, the truth. It felt like the truth. And the stuff I hear now in the last few years, it's like crazy people. They all have mental problems and they're all high on crack and they don't know right from wrong and up from down. They just like whatever they think comes out of their mouth. And then you'll have somebody else maybe on the same day contradicting what the guy just said. We have the faithful and discreet slave. He's leading the organization. And then you have another one saying that the faithful and discreet slave won't be appointed or whatever until the Great Tribulation breaks out. Well, which is it? Are you inspired or not? Loesch said that they are not inspired, and another brother said that they're not inspired. But then they talk about how Jehovah's Spirit is guiding the work. I mean, they talk out of both sides of their mouth. I mean, we get that. Why don't they get that?
You know, I think like back then, I think the consistency, it made it tougher to leave. It made it, you kind of had, you had your fixed points there where it made more sense to you. I think if things were changing every week and every month and every year, I would have had an easier curve of saying, well, it's all bad, it's time to leave.
I just don't understand how anybody these days can take any teaching, whether they call it new light or whatever they call it. How can you take anything seriously when it could be something different an hour from now or next week or next month? I mean, how long ago was it that the Watchtower told the brothers and sisters to destroy all their literature from a certain year all the way? Why? How come they went digital? It's because they can change things. You don't have hard copy, you can't prove anything. They are so beyond sneaky. They have no qualms about lying. It's like they're so screwed up, it's beyond.
And like during the pandemic, they didn't really care if you went out in field service. They encouraged you not to.
That's a shame.
And there was no in-person meetings for about 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, even after I left, we're talking, 2008, 2009, they got rid of the book study in that time.
That was weird.
And that was okay with me. Like, I would have liked to have 2 meetings back then instead of 3. But I was already out by that time, so I didn't care. But it's really hard when you're trying to do your best, and then, you got 3 meetings and then field service, and it's like there's no way to be like a perfect Jehovah's Witness at the time,
There is no way, honey. There's no way.
But like if it was, if the standards were, just wear your best clothes, keep up a good appearance, and show up on Sunday. That's a lot easier than it being like a full-time job. But yeah, I know. Like as soon as I left, there was a lot of changes. They got rid of the book study. They changed a lot of the books. They were like soft cover. Remember when they changed those? And then they added new songbook songs. And like, you really see the changes. They seem really weird, if you're not like into it.
Well, see, I don't know about you guys, but I remember the songbook that was kind of a swirl of caramel color and lime green. And it was beautiful. They had a lot of songs about Jesus and a lot of songs about joy and, the love of God. And it was happy, feel good, lifting your spirits kind of songs. And over the years, they got rid of songs about Jesus. And more they became almost like Gestapo marching songs. Like, we're Jehovah's Witnesses. We speak out in fearlessness. It's all this just like the Germans did. It's all like a marching propaganda song. And if you look at the words, they don't make sense because the next line is, ours is the God of true prophecy. What he foretells comes to be. And it's a lie. Nothing that this organization has foretold in the name of God has come true. It's all lies.
Yeah, and I remember like some of those songs. Some of them like they're like earworms. Some of them I still like sing them in my head. Live for the day when you'll say life without end at last.
Propaganda.
Yeah. And
they're all dying off.
Like other like secular churches, there's like certain music numbers, and then but they're kind of fun though. They're kind of like they're not lifeless like the Witness songs are. Like, our God is an awesome God. He reigns on heaven and earth. I don't know. I just view that type of stuff as less harmful than the Witness stuff, Just me.
I was just thinking, like, again, if truth is the truth, why are we keep changing and taking away and saying this is the truth and now that's the truth? And you can't even look at an older magazine or book that says ABC and you can't show it to somebody. Oh, that's old light. Oh, that's an apostate book now. They literally will look at old literature as apostate literature. Does that make any sense? So what? You were teaching us apostate beliefs? These guys don't make sense.
And just in the last couple of years, like you're allowed to have beards now. That's something I said when I was in. I'm like, well, Jesus and his disciples have beards. Why can't we wear them now?
I don't know what their reasoning is. Somebody said that they're trying to appeal to the younger generation. I'm sure they have a good reason.
I think they're trying to ease up, because like the old way of doing things, like it's too much for people.
I don't know. I think that, like you said, or somebody said, they're too corrupt to give up. And I think that they're just going to hold on to whoever and whomever they can hold on to it for as long as they can, because every single convert, every single Watchtowerite is a dime, a dollar, free labor. It's something. I mean, they're just going to say whatever they have to say, teach whatever they have to teach, no matter how many times they're going to change it or how convoluted it is. They're going to say it because they have nothing to lose at this point.
Well, yeah, it's the self-preservation that's in all of us. Nobody's going to want to be hung out to dry. So they're going to keep going down with the ship.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Hello, Anne-Marie.
Yeah, who's this?
I haven't called in a while. This is a Pasta Dude.
Oh, hi, Pasta Dude. I know who you are. How you doing?
Doing really good. Appreciate
Good.
your program. Couple of
thank
things
you.
to put in, if I could quickly. Because if you get a copy of the new invitation and look carefully at the tree behind Jesus, there's probably about 6 or 7 ghoulish faces in that. So
why am I not surprised?
Yeah, the subliminal stuff is kind of hard to because they can make excuses for that. But then there was the songbook with the penis that they had to pull out. Sorry for the pull-out term, but they changed the old songbook. You guys were talking about songbooks, and there was a very clear. If you don't know, people will know about that. So anyway, if you get the invitation now in my house. There doesn't live here anymore, but there's somebody I really care about who I'm afraid would do some kind of serious breakdown if he knew what I knew. So that's why I'm anonymous. But anyway, that invitation, if anybody wants to get a hold of one, because we're talking about how much they know about who they are. And when you get into those subliminal drawings and everything, come on, man. I mean, they're not even close to authentic Christians. Not even close. So just for another example, years ago, I had a part in the meeting. I want to throw this one in. And the part in the meeting was about 8 minutes, and this is before I knew anything. And it was about what does it mean to be, that term, let me just think of it now. It's, I'm an older guy, so I have this happen once in a while. But anyway, it's, who has the mediator? That was the part.
That one.
And if I knew then what I know now, I had one ministerial servant. In the form of questions that I processed, I asked, "What does it mean? Who is your mediator?" And this ministerial servant raised his hand and said, "Jesus is my mediator." Now the whole point of it was I think it was a little bit before the memorial too, and it was to make people understand what you guys were talking about earlier. You're not the mediator. The Bible's written for you. It's like, hello. So if I'd have known then what I know now, I would have really drilled down, because I let that ministerial servant off by, the point was, no, he's not all of our mediator, only the anointed. And he was very ungrounded in the truth. You get a lot of those servants and elders really, really behind the curve on what's really to be taught, which is not okay. But anyway, so he messed up, and I let him off the hook and kind of softened it and advised everybody to look very carefully at whatever piece of literature had the story on that. And originally, one of the best ones was that Worldwide Security and the Prince of Peace, one of those little books long ago. But it made it very clear, Jesus is not your mediator, most of you J-dubs. And some of them don't know that. Now, another thing came up earlier in the show, before I check out here, because I know everybody's hanging out. So I just was thinking the other day, what if you went up to a cart and because I believe you got to be nice to these people, because it's not their fault. It's the leadership.
Right.
But yeah, and they're at the carts, and you just sit there and you read what they've heard, and they've pounded this nail many times since 2013, that we must be ready to obey any direction, even if it's stupid from a human standpoint. Now, if you read exactly what they said and you had the date and the copy of it and just looked them in the eye and said, please wake up, and walked away, it wouldn't be too mean, but it would be so potent. And it's just so sad. They have said that and reiterated that, even in the those updates the anointed do, or the governing body, or whatever they want to call themselves. They've done that several times, because as we get so-called deeper in and they're losing their grip, they're pounding that point just to hold on to the last minute, the last bitter, when they've gone too far. It's the day's coming when you're going to have to be retarded not to see that this is a big scam. So anyway, great to get on your show for a minute, and I appreciate what you're doing, Marie.
Oh, bless your heart. Well, I appreciate you coming on. We all do, because, Rick has said so many times that callers make the show, and everyone who comes on and shares is so important. It's like a beautiful bunch of gems, diamonds and rubies and sapphires and jade. We get beautiful comments and points of view and experiences. And it really helps to bring it home when you put it all together, that we know what we're talking about. We tell the truth, and we keep hoping that our PMO brothers and sisters, are encouraged hearing the show. And we're hoping that maybe those who are physically still believing but mentally questioning, will be listening in, because we know they want answers to their questions. And little by little, I do believe that they're going to wake up. A lot of them, some of them are dying hard.
The interesting thing is, if you just think about it, they want the floor, they want control, they want non-interrupted. Nobody's going to question anything, unless, and they'll yank you in the back room if you do. And they have that justification. Well, we have the truth. We don't want anybody to disrupt. Okay, fine. But the point is that people need to find this show, and all the other things on the internet are an antidote to that. In other words, this strange behavior of total control of the agenda, being complete frauds, allows them to get away with it. So
exactly.
Yeah. So I'm going to check off. You guys have a great night, everybody out there.
And you as well. And thank you so very much for coming on and sharing your thoughts. It really adds to everything.
Thank you. Thank you for the time. Have a great night.
Thank you. And you as well, my dear. Anybody like to comment or share a thought, an experience, or whatever your opinion might be on anything that's been said so far? We were talking about... Yeah, who's this again?
Hey, it's RJ again.
Hi, RJ.
I'm just thinking about, the way the witnesses are portrayed and how they actually are, that's where the disconnect comes. I was really close with my grandparents, and they were pretty devout witnesses. And then looking back on it, I see that the witness part of it was the part that doesn't add up. And I was I was out, you know, the last couple of years of their lives, and I didn't try to preach to them. I didn't tell them what was wrong with the religion because at that point, you know, if you're in your late 70s, early 80s, it is what it is, and don't complicate your life anymore, you know?
Yeah.
That's a tough pill to swallow, even if they would have accepted it, which I don't think they would have. But I remember visiting my grandparents, and it was all about, I watched the reruns of Linda Carter Wonder Woman. I watched Packers football on Sundays, and then, you know, I went to the meeting with them, and that was how it was when I was over there.
Aw, well, at least they got to be with you, and you were being with them, and you weren't pushing them. You were just there, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just memories now, but I still appreciate that time, even the bad parts.
Aw. I'm sure they were glad to have you with them. However, it had to happen.
Yeah, you wonder how certain family members would be if they weren't in that environment. They didn't have that influence, you know?
Well, the Watchtower definitely does have a way of not only taking over your mind, but they take over who you really are. And you don't know anymore. Your identity is completely sucked up with what Watchtower says you are. You fit in the mold, and then you're a good Jehovah's Witness. If you don't, then you're bad. You're an apostate. You're causing trouble. You're causing divisions. We need to get rid of you.
Yeah, because, you know, my grandparents, they seemed like normal enough. That was the only off thing about them was they were witnesses, you know? Like they seemed like they would go to like strawberry picking festival. They would go yard sailing. They would, you know, they would do all the stuff, all the summer activities. They would, you know, take me to football spring training. Like, you know, they did all normal stuff. They just had that witness element that was off, you know?
I'm hearing you. Sounds like they were kind of feeling stuck the way they were and did what they felt that they could do. Have some sense of freedom and individuality.
And I talked to another ex-witness, and what he told me about, what he told me was, you know, I noticed the happiest witnesses were the ones that did the bare minimum and were barely there.
I've heard that too, and we can understand why.
Yeah, it's kind of, I didn't look at it that way, but it's an interesting take, you know?
It is, and they were probably PMOs, physically in, but mentally that they were out because they'd done the research, but they couldn't leave. Because why? Usually it's because they had a wife or husband they didn't want to lose, grandparents, children, and so on. So they just...
I think even simpler than that is you got to have boundaries, you know, like...
Right.
You know, like when I was in, they said, well, you know, if it's between your life and Jehovah, you don't take the blood transfusion and that. Like, I never got put in that position, but I wanted to indoctrinated enough that I wasn't ready to make that sacrifice. You know, I think I'd be sensible and say, well, you know, it's better to keep going on and take their interpretation of it, you know?
Well, you know what they say, it's better to ask forgiveness than to ask for permission, because so many people just let their wives die. So many babies had to grow up without their mother. So many people just let their children die. And now, I don't know if I heard correctly, but I heard it now, it's a matter of conscience.
Or yeah, you know, and even it doesn't have to be, you know, all or nothing like situation. Sometimes it's little things like, hey, I want to see this movie, but it's R-rated. Am I going to let Watchtower's principals, you know, like make me not see the movie? Or am I not going to go on a date because they're not a witness? And am I not going to have any fun because I'm going to be stuck in my witness ways? You know, it's personal boundaries. You you got to set within yourself, you know?
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, it seems like if you're thinking Watchtower, it's no matter what you're thinking of doing, it's wrong. There's something wrong. You're doing something unfaithful.
And yeah, and you know, like, that really creates a lot of mental problems for people that do that.
Exactly. So, I need to ask our brother Rick how much time we have. My brother Rick, are you there?
Right here, Anne-Marie. Let's go for about 5 minutes, and then we'll go to JW World News.
No, righty then. Thank you, my brother. Would you like to add any further, my brother? Anything further? It was interesting listening to you.
Yeah, I would just say, you know, you got to be true to yourself. You got to, you know, we love talking about our time in the Watchtower organization, but we still have to sometimes let that go and find our own joy in the things that make us happy and not just the things that make us upset.
Absolutely, but we need to be balanced, need to be true to ourselves, and it's good to be able to talk about these things, but also to look back and see the forest. You know, they always say you can't see the forest for the trees. Well, we can see the forest, and we see the corruption and the lies and, you know, what they did to us, and we need to talk about it because there are those who are either listening now or who will be listening later in the archives on YouTube. Thank God everything gets stored. So, you know, they are coming out, and Rick's not the only one that's noticed it. And we know thousands of Kingdom Halls have been sold. How many branches have been closed down and sold? How many congregations have they taken and merged them with other congregations? But yet at the same time, you know, a lot of these congregations are maybe only 48% full, and they're still telling the flock, oh, we're growing by leaps and bounds. Jehovah's Chariot is on the move. We need more money to build more Kingdom Halls. And they're selling thousands of them, raking in the money. Kingdom Halls that were mostly built by brothers and sisters.
And you know, Ann, like, if you think about it, as far as the share of the keeping it all going, like, it was always the rank and file that have to mow the grass, that have to pay the light bill, utilities, and give talks and, you know, organized, you know, the ministry school and all the Watchtower did was provide the, they provide the doctrine, and then they provided magazines and the book.
Hello. If I could break in.
Well, obviously you're going to. Go ahead.
Hi, Anne-Marie. This is Fran. Sorry.
Hi, Fran. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm happy to hear you. How are you and Joe?
Oh, we're doing just hunky-dory. I just wanted to add to what you were saying, because I know Rick said you have a few minutes, about the ones that are coming out. And as you know, a lot of people, you know, connect with us and everything. And we just had one of our Canadian friends who's, you know, a little bit older, and she said that her father, who was a witness for 60 years, wished her a happy birthday in writing, and he's waking up, and he still has a daughter and grandchildren that are in, so he's trying to do it in a way that, you know, he can help them come out. We are hearing of so many ones that are leaving every day. So we just wanted to add that to what you are. I know I broke in, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to mention that.
No, I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that whoever's talking is able to finish their thought. And so, you know, but I want you to know that I very much am grateful that you came on. And how is Joe doing? Is he there?
Yes, he's doing good. He's working right now.
Oh,
he says hi.
Oh, you tell Joe we said hi.
He doesn't dare. He said he doesn't dare say anything. But if you want to go back to the brother that was talking, and I know he didn't finish what he was going to say, so that's all.
I think he did.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad you did say it, Fran. And you know, you and your husband Joe, everybody knows, and everybody is grateful and heartened to hear from the get-go. You guys have really been spreading the love and the support, and you know, getting people connected with each other. You guys are doing a phenomenal work, and it's amazing how the Lord uses us, and it's so great.
Yes, and you too, and Rick, and everyone that's speaking out. It's really making a difference now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Okay, well, I think we need to close the show now.
Okay,
it is
thank you,
time.
Marie.
Thank you for coming on.
I love you.
I love you too. You guys, I'm so glad I got to meet you and your beautiful husband. You have so much love on. You guys are so full of love. Anyway, I want to thank. I want to thank the callers. I want to thank Donald from Texas and Matthew from South Africa and our beautiful brother Kurt and our sweet sister Pixie, who always brings out really interesting stuff. Want to thank Chris from Arizona and Gigi and Stefan and RJ, Apasta Dude, and lastly, our dear sister Fran. You guys just really made the show so great. You have no idea how much I love you all and how grateful I am that you guys listened in and shared your thoughts, because all of what you have to say is important to say. We need to go to our brother Rick now and JW World News. Rick?
Well, thank you, Anne-Marie, and thank all those people for calling in. Boy, we have a lot of people coming in here tonight, and I don't know why, but boy, oh boy, a lot of people coming in the phone lines and listening in. It's really great to see so many ex-witnesses coming in and conversing with one another. The Watchtower hates that. The Watchtower hates it when we're supposed to be mentally diseased, where we're supposed to be the dogs returning to the vomit. We're supposed to be those that are agents of the devil. But look at all the fun we're having. Look at all the fun we're having and being able to meet here every Saturday night. The Watchtower hates this because they think that when you leave the Watchtower, there's nothing for you. You were just the scum of the earth. But boy, oh boy, I'll tell you what, it makes a big difference having all these friends. I have more friends now in the ex-witness world, and these are real friends than I had when I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses. So anyways, let me just get this off of here right now, and you can see me. We're going to go to JW World News. That's coming up next. I don't know if you saw it, that May 1st Watchtower edition, big changes on the horizon. I'm looking at this as an epic change, an epic change. It could lead to monumental changes in the Watchtower. So stay with us. We're going to talk about it coming up next, right here on the 6 Screens Telenetwork. Thank you for being with us. We're going to end this stream right here, but stay on this channel. Stay on our radio network. Stay on YouTube and Facebook, because we'll be coming up next. Don't go anywhere.